I kind of came to the conclusion later on that jazz, although, you know, a very sophisticated and somewhat academic by now form of music, it's still mostly folklore, in a sense that you only learn by rubbing elbows with hopefully people who are better than you. Going back to New York, yeah, 7 years on the street, not because I absolutely had to, it's just it was a killing band. The drummer was the kind of like holder of the band. He would drive everybody. He was a student of Tommy Campbell, who eventually would be the person to put me in the Mingus band.
Mingus was volcanically inspiring, just in every way. His jazz is not like anybody else's at all. He does not care where he's taking, he just put everything in the pop, you know what I mean? And I loved the way that he was absolutely steering that ship no matter what was going on, you know. He was doing that before James Brown was doing that. You just know that if he put one eye on you, you would just do, you know, it would just change on a dime. It had every human emotion in his music. Just from the most profound, sweetest sincerity to just absolute anger, you know? It just had everything. Ellington was just a starting point for it, but it was coming from way before that, and then it was taking in the free thing and incredible composition.
He was in awe of Duke Ellington. He was in awe of Monk and Bob Powell and Charlie Parker. He, you know, the Toronto sessions, he actually played with all of them. And they were kind of like persuading him to come to New York to be in that pack, even though he was always to himself, he was always kind of like little outside because he wrote this crazy stuff. He wanted to run his own bands. But it was that group of people like that he admired who actually told him like come to the East Coast, because for a long time he didn't want to do that. He called himself Baron Mingus, you know, like fashionable way of calling yourself, like Count Basie of Duke Ellington, Baron Mingus. And he was even bragging how you guys on the East Coast, you know, just playing this, you know, hole-in-the-wall kind of clubs with your bebop, and I'm, you know, thriving here in my sunny, funny California.
He made a video in 1967 where it was like a little documentary, and his whole life was falling apart at that point. He was getting evicted, and he was at a down point in his life. But there's footage of him playing in a club with Danny Richmond, and he did this thing where he kind of turned his hands the other way and started playing. So the notes went down, you got this weird clacking. I was like, whoa, that's incredible. And that extended language on the bass has obviously really found a home with people like William Parker and Barry Guy and players like that who have taken that, you know, and Bar Phillips is another player who's, they've evolved this kind of another branch on the tree, you know.
People who knew him, you know, they would say like, oh, he was a bunch of different guys, and they meant his personality. But I would think the same without ever having to meet him. But I would say he was a bunch of guys, musically speaking, too. He defined that the new role of the bass, but, you know, he was in a sense, you know, if you look at early bass player who made the bass, you know, melodic and solistic instrument, like Oscar Pettiford. Like, he spawned a lot of, you know, people going into a lot of different directions. But people like that, Mingus was directly in line with that. It's just Mingus had other elements that he was bringing into it, I think.